pull the string, pull the string!
Scoodly, wow, wow, wow.
High area backstage.
The human brain contains 100 billion neurons. Each neuron is as powerful as a large computer, and each neuron has around 10,000 connections with other neurons within our foreheads.
M. Suggested for mature audiences. Parental discretion advised.
All these factors must be considered as we plan for the survival of our homes, our families, and our nation in the nuclear age.
That grudge band of his, what's up? You know the name of that electric band. And be sure to check out Kirk's delightfully demented movie poster collection. That's truly some of the best art known to man and beast alike. Welcome to Kirk's Garage!
Bay Area Backstage on location at Kirk Von Hammett's FearfestEvil at the Regency Ballroom in San Francisco. Check out this horror panel featuring Kirk Von Hammett, Slash-Kerry King, and Doyle von Frankenstein.
Apparently set in a town that they say Pope John Paul II refused to fly over. And the Cure wouldn't play there, and the town is Stull, Kansas. So, Stull, Kansas. I have to say that, enunciate. Yeah, so a big horror fan, he'll be with us. Kerry King is going to be here soon. His plane is landing. As we, this city doesn't deal well with rain, the airports. Doyle Wolfgang von Frankenstein will be with us. I think we could all agree that Doyle probably knows a little bit about horror. One of these. Okay, Mr. Von Hammett and Slash. You can do better than that.
Cheers, thank you. Thank you again, everyone, for coming out. It's a real pleasure.
All righty.
Hey. Welcome, Slash. Welcome, Doyle. I hope you guys are having a good day.
Having a great day.
Excellent.
Excellent. Well, I'm going to throw out a teeny tiny little question, and I'm going to let you guys spin off each other and see where we end up, all right?
Sure.
It's a simple one. One by one, I'd like to know the first time each of you remember feeling fear. Feeling scared. I want you to dig way back into your childhoods.
I only have one answer for that. It's the fucking dentist. Only thing I'm scared of.
From an early age?
For as long as I can fucking remember.
Okay. The dentist? Carry on. The first time you remember.
I pissed out a kidney stone. And blood, not blood and piss came out, blood came out.
Wow. As a youth, as a young man?
Yeah.
Oh boy, that would be scary.
You know, my answer is similar to Slash's. I had a traumatic sort of experience when I got my first vaccination. You know, and from that point on, I just hated going to the doctor and getting vaccinations. And to this day, I'm so needle phobic. It drives me nuts.
I can't even see somebody get one. I'll pass out.
Yeah, you know, I get all lightheaded.
Oh yeah, as soon as it touches me, I'm done.
No, when I was little, I had that, like going to the doctor with my mom and knowing that was coming, even though they didn't tell you, you just knew.
Oh, they never
innately,
told me.
And then hiding behind the door and crouching down and
At one point, I saw the doctor coming at me with a syringe, and I yelled to my sister, "Come on, Jennifer, run!" And we ran down the hallway, and my mom ran chasing us and got us, and we got the goddamn vaccination. But that to me is fear.
Yeah.
Yes.
That is real fear for me.
Which is not where you were thinking we were going to go with this. Sure.
Well, no, it's interesting because, I mean, you think about, like, Dr. Frankenstein, who I think you're all big fans of. I mean, do you think there's something clicking off there? Your fear of doctors, your love of a doctor, your love of his creation? I mean, talk a little bit about how that all folded in as a young man. Start with you, Kirk, and move along the line. Those Universal horror films, what they meant, and then talk a little bit about your favorite characters from those classics.
You know, I just love those movies so much. You know, for me, Frankenstein, Dracula, The Mummy, those are huge in my psyche. I mean, particularly Frankenstein's monster. You know, his character was so sympathetic, and I could relate to him on a lot of different levels. You know, the sort of outsider quality to that character really appealed to me at a really young age, and as well as The Mummy. You know, I just love The Mummy. The Mummy didn't really ask to become the Mummy, as you know, and he just wanted to get his chick back. That's all he wanted to do.
Yeah, so I think probably the one that stuck with me the most was Quasimodo. And it was a character that, because of his situation, I always felt sorry for him. And I always thought that he was poorly misunderstood and all that kind of stuff. And I remember as a kid, I was raised on a lot of, my parents were total horror freaks, so everything under the sun horror I was exposed to. And so I had a certain kind of sensitivity to what the different characters had going on. So you always ended up feeling a little bit sorry for all of them because they have their own issues that caused them to be the way that they were.
It's pretty cool. Were your parents like sitting there saying, no, you got to understand it from the monster's point of view? Were they talking to you about it like that? Or?
No. But I do remember my mom being very, like she felt bad for the Fly's character because of his situation. I remember her being, the creature from the Black Lagoon, leave him alone, he's got issues. She was always sensitive to King Kong, and so I picked up on that, and I was like, yeah, Mom, you're right. Yeah.
Wow, I wish my mom was that cool.
Hey, brother. Okay.
Actually, she is.
Yeah, Doyle, you got...
Same thing with me. When I was a kid, my brother Jerry and I, we would watch Creature Features would come on, and Chiller Theater with this, I think it had 6 fingers. We always try and count it all the time. And we would watch all that, and same thing. Dracula, Frankenstein, Wolfman, like you, King Kong, that's my favorite, and I always felt bad for him, because when I'm with a girl, I feel like him. I know. You know what I mean?
So it's cool because monsters are teaching you guys empathy as kids, right?
Yeah.
That's a pretty big deal. It's pretty cool.
It wouldn't matter who the opponent was, I would fight with them.
For me, I had a pretty unusual childhood. I didn't have a whole lot of parental guidance. Look what happened. But those movies really they informed me to a certain extent when I was a child, and I looked at these movies for just some sort of guidance, and even to this day I'll watch these movies and I'll just marvel at the messages that these movies are putting across. Yeah, they're total moral plays. I mean, Greek tragedies. I mean, for sure.
I mean, right off the top of my head, I remember staying at this with some friends of mine when I was a little kid. I was probably 11 years old or 10 years old. And we were staying at a house on the beach that was being constructed overnight. And they had a stereo hooked up, and we listened to the Jaws soundtrack. And that's a pretty ominous soundtrack within the movie, but as a standalone piece of music, it's fucking phenomenal. And I remember that, obviously had a big impression with me that's lasted to this day.
Fuck that movie. I can't even go in the ocean. Once that shit gets eye level, something touches me, I'm out of there.
Well, as a surfer, whenever I paddled out into the ocean, that's one movie I cannot think of. Because I just get so spooked. I freak myself out.
But that shark isn't real. It's not going to get you. Don't worry.
No way, man. That was a real shark in my mind.
We were talking about The Shining earlier, and that soundtrack, those first, that intro music is just phenomenal. So I've always been into the horror scores because they just have a certain darkness to it that even before I knew I was going to pick up the guitar, I related to. And then when I did start playing, I automatically sort of went in those directions.
That's what happens to me when I watch a horror film. I find myself listening to the fucking music and not paying attention to the movie. You know what I mean? What? Sorry.
Mic technique 101.
That's why I don't fucking sing.
Since we're on the subject of horror movie soundtracks, I think the very first one that really leaped out at me was the soundtrack to the first Halloween movie. That constant sort of drone that's on the keyboard. I mean once you hear that, it just works its way into your brain, man, and just anytime after you hear that, you know exactly what it is.
All of John Carpenter's soundtracks have a certain quality that's very simple and with repetitious or repetitive, and it always it gave me hope that you could do something that dramatic with such little resources.
Yeah. So you did the music to your film, right? How was that?
That was one of when given the opportunity to produce a movie, it was one of the main attractions was the being able to be in control of the music. And when doing a score, it's not the first time I've actually worked on movie music. But it brings out a side of me that I don't usually use. I didn't even know I had. That I don't use them within the confines of a rock and roll arrangement. Right. So it was a blast.
Wow, very cool.
I mean, looking at when you hit particularly heavy riffs, I mean, are you thinking horror when you're hitting hard riffs? I mean, that's the instant connection that I would make as a listener. It's like, wow, the heavier the riff, it must be some huge horrific image in your head when you're playing that. Does it work like that?
Well, I think for me it's the other way around. I'll write a riff and I go, oh my god, that sounds like Godzilla tromping Tokyo. It definitely for me is the other way around. I'll write something and then it'll remind me of maybe a character or a scene in a movie or something. But it's never happened to me the other way. I've never watched a movie and thought, all right.
There's something that happens. Like if you look at when you're making a record and you look at the work titles that you come up with, they usually end up being something horror related, for me anyway. Like these crazy words that would make a great title for a horror movie. Especially, there's a certain kind of, you put certain notes together that just have a certain menacing quality to it, and you go to make a quick, what do we call that for now? And it's automatic. So I guess it's subconscious.
Right. I saw you nodding quite enthusiastically.
Yeah, I've never noticed that any of the titles of our songs had horror in them.
All right, I think, yeah, bring him up. I think Kerry's flight's landed, and I think Kerry's coming. So say a quick hello here for Mr. Kerry King.
Thank you. Right here, Mr. King. How's your day, Kerry?
Fucking awful.
Right on.
But I told you I'd be here, and I'm here.
Thank you, man.
Should we pick up where we left off?
Yeah, sure.
I'm gonna. What's up, Seven? Hey, buddy, how's it going? Hello. I was just telling these guys that in my head, when you've got a riff and you're hitting that riff hard, there must be some huge horror image leaping out of your head and through the strings, and so they've all answered. And hey, Kerry, how are you? Now you can answer. Is this true? Is it true for you?
For me, I don't know. Now I got to get into horror mode because I've kind of been in horror mode in airports all day. But I just make up riffs. Number one for me. Number two for the fans, of course. And I don't think the horror aspect comes into it until after I'm kind of done getting an arrangement happening, because then I start thinking about lyrics. Then I might start thinking of Friday the 13th. I might start thinking of Nightmare on Elm Street. I might start thinking of Halloween. I might not think of any of that shit. It just, at that point is where it would take that thing you asked about, music and horror and stuff. Musically, I try to get music happening before I start adding the twisted part to it.
Other than Misfits, who I think we'd all agree are a fantastic marriage of horror and music and hard music, which other band has embodied the marriage between horror and music the best for you? Which one?
Black Sabbath. I mean, the title song of their first record is still to this day one of the heaviest pieces of music.
Yeah, can you guys, it would be cool if you could, do you remember the first time you heard it and what you thought, and it was like,
I was on acid in high school.
Yeah! I would like to know what you saw. I would love to know what you saw, dude. That would be great.
I could tell you the whole story, but it takes too much time.
Come on, do it.
But yeah,
a little bit of a story. It sounds great.
I was in an abandoned lot called Fuller Estates in LA, which used to be Errol Flynn's house. And it's raised to the ground, but the base structure is still there in the pool and all the cement, And I was on acid, and someone played me Sabbath, and I was like, whoa. I can't remember specifically what I saw, but it was quite an evening.
That sounds like it. Moving along, would you agree with that, guys?
Yeah. Black Sabbath, is the obvious one, for sure. There's, believe it or not, there's been other genres of music that have embraced horror. Not quite as much as heavy metal, but you would not think of it, but there's a reggae artist called Scientist, and every single one of his tracks is named after a horror movie. And there's no lyrics, of course, it's all just dub. But for me, I was like, yeah, killer.
Yeah.
Scientist. And it came out like late 70s, dub stuff.
Yeah. And a lot of classical music is just as foreboding as it gets, And it's not related to any horror movie at all, but it's just the mood you're trying to convey.
Right, that whole Baroque, the Wagners, and the Marlowe always sounded like prehistoric life for you. Prehistoric.
Tchaikovsky.
Yeah. Kerry, any thoughts on that?
Well, Slash took the obvious one.
That's all right.
That's a slam dunk. How do you not say Black Sabbath? But even regardless what you think of Marilyn Manson's got some spooky shit. Right?
It's true.
It's true. And there's been times in his career where I was a super fan. He's had some great moments in history. But another one in the metal genre would be not on the same level as Sabbath, but the early Maiden records. They're certainly punkier, but they've certainly got that street killer vibe. Killers, Prowler.
Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah.
And Alice Cooper was intentional.
There you go. That's a good one.
Alice Cooper is why I look like this.
It's tough when you get up here and you get presented that question. You're like, man, I've got 5,000 answers and none of them are in my head.
That's like going to Amoeba. You want to go buy something, you get me like, fuck.
Well, at the risk of presenting another one of those questions to you, and this is a curveball, but I'm kind of interested. If you could each play a character from a favorite or classic horror film, who would it be? Who's the character you would play?
I have two.
Excellent. Fire
Just
away.
off the top of my head. One's the obvious one from Shocker, Horace Pinker, because I'm the bald guy. I could be that dude so easy.
Nobody ever mentions him. That's pretty. You're right. He was pretty ugly.
Do we have to have a similar look thing going?
Yeah. I'd be the modern guy with a long goat, you know. And the other one, I can't even think of his name in the movie. I don't even know if they tell you in the movie, but Kevin Spacey in Seven.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's great.
No, they don't ever say his name.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite movies ever.
I'd have to say it probably would be a lot of fun to be like a giant bug, you know, and just like destroy New York. Yeah, there you go. That's exactly where I was going, you know, to trample Tokyo again. Yeah.
Now, okay. I think the Wolfman would be either that or Mr. Hyde. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the fucking Fly.
Yeah. I'm surprised you didn't mention Christopher Lee from the Wicker Man slasher. We're talking about this.
Yeah.
But talk a little bit. Just tell these people about the Wicker Man, because I don't know if people have seen. Have you all seen the Wicker Man, the original Wicker Man?
The Wicker Man, that and Rosemary's Baby were the two movies that we sort of used as models in this Nothing Left to Fear movie that we just did, because we wanted to do a sort of an old school, slow burn kind of retro kind of thing. And those were the two movies that had such a big influence on me that I was drawing from. They're a great movie though. Just never watched the remake.
I have to agree. Rosemary's Baby is a really, really great horror film. I mean, the ending is just so great, and yeah, that's what he has his father's eyes. Love it.
Oh, it's interesting. I mean, do you think that's the best satanic horror film that's ever been made? I mean, or The Omen? I mean,
That baby's pretty fucked up looking.
It's not a baby I would have liked to have been the dad of, I can tell you that. No, but I mean, do you think that it is the best of that genre, the best satanic horror film? What about The Omen? I mean, The
Omen's my favorite. Because when I saw The Omen, that was the first, at that time, was the first like real feature film horror movie with just an amazing cast and like big production. It was like as big as any of the other feature films that were out at the time. And this is the first time I'd ever really seen that besides The Exorcist.
The Exorcist, that's the one.
I would say The Exorcist, for me, is the scariest fucking movie in the world. It still is. I still get chills from watching that movie. But I love the line in Beetlejuice when Michael Keaton says, The Exorcist, every time I watch it, just keeps on getting funnier and funnier. Love that line.
Do you think that too many sequels to these films and they just go flat? I mean, when you think of Nightmare on Elm Street, I mean, how far do you think it went before the sequels were no good? How many?
I didn't like the second one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't care for the second one at all.
Okay.
But I thought the third one was okay. And then they kind of became parodies.
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on how long the creative integrity is involved. You know what I mean? When you start just slapping these things together because they make a lot of money and it doesn't matter, which is sort of the mentality of the movie business, then that's what happens.
Yeah, I mean, what about remakes of classics? Let's talk about that. When we touched on Wicker Man, which I didn't like that remake.
The best remake that I can think of is Invasion of the Body Snatchers. And that was in the 70s.
Right, Donald Sutherland, yeah, very good.
Fly.
What about Halloween and films like that, and those as remakes? Did you enjoy them?
Well, I got to tell you, and I had this conversation with someone else here over the past couple of days. Halloween 3 is a really unique film in that it has absolutely nothing to do with Michael Myers whatsoever. But it's still a really great
the
movie.
Silver Shamrock one?
Yeah, Season of the Witch. Yeah.
That's so funny. I just saw it like recently. I haven't seen it since.
It's just like, you know, they decided, okay, we're just going to throw the whole premise of Halloween down the drain, and we're going to stick this in, and this is going to be movie number 3, and it has absolutely nothing to do with what happened in the 2 previous Halloween movies. And then when the 4th one came out, it was like the 3rd one never even existed.
I don't think a lot of people didn't get the 3rd one. They just stared at it and was like, yeah. But the remake that Rob Zombie did of Halloween was great.
Yeah, I thought it was really good. I really enjoyed it. So, the question, I mean, this is just off the top of my head. What's happened to the classic Scream Queen? Why do you think we don't see any great dames of horror anymore? We just don't see it.
Everybody hates to hear bitches scream.
Any thoughts on that? I mean, it seems everything's got much more.
It's a good question. I wonder if it's just been done as good as it could ever be done at this point.
Right.
I mean, it's only a Scream. I think it's a combination of a lot of different things: the situation, the scare, the scare itself, and the person who's doing it. And maybe it's just something that hasn't been written into scripts as of late, because it's something I almost forgot about.
Yeah, it feels as well. We've talked about this on other panels, but I think it's worth asking. There's been this, I don't know if it's an evolution or devolution or shift in horror from classic scares and classic screams or whatever into all of a sudden like real torture stuff, and let's see how ugly and visceral, and let's see how much pain we could inflict right there. I mean, what are your thoughts on that shift? The whole, I mean, I'll say hostile genre, films like that versus, we were talking about the Dawn of the Dead or the Rosemary's Babies. Talk a little bit about what you think of the differences in the genres as they're developing.
Hostel's one of those rare movies where I think the second one's better than the first one. Because it's all around that girl, and then she becomes a badass at the end and kicks everybody's ass, which nobody really sees coming.
Humanoid. Intruder alert, intruder alert. Intruder